Hi guys, HyDra again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The qualifiers are over. The bracket for Major 1 in Madrid in just a couple of days' time is officially set. Some familiar first round games, some big storylines here. Potentially OpTic versus Thieves happening early on. Unfortunate stuff for Boston and Atlanta FaZe, despite struggling back in December, may have found themselves on the better side of the bracket. Is it going to be an OpTic versus FaZe finals? That would be what we'd expect to see on recent evidence, but recent results have certainly not indicated that anything is especially predictable about this league. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. As always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty we're going to get through today, starting really with Huke's performance yesterday up against the, of course, Toronto Ultra to secure OpTic the #1 seed. Still find it quite remarkable that Huke, they could just go and get it, right? Because OpTic dropped for controversial reasons, and we'll discuss later today potential changes teams might need after Major 1, but they dropped a, generational SMG talent in Pred, and they managed to just go and pick up for free another generational SMG talent in Huke. Now, and also reforming what has been, at least in the CDL, one of the best SMG duos ever in Shotzzy and Huke, and they just got to go get him for free. It's still kind of outrageous to me. I guess they have, Seattle Surge to thank for that. All the Surge versus OpTic drama over the last few years, when they wanted Pred OpTic, Surge wouldn't sell him. Then even over the last couple of years, basically all of OpTic's players have been on Surge at some point. Obviously, like the whole Illy situation happens. Rambo was formerly on OpTic as well. The coach over there, we'll discuss him more in a second. Huke was there, Pred was there. It's all been going on with that organization, and thanks to Rambo and Surge for dropping Huke for Hicksy. Now, look, the Brezzy for Nastie thing, totally get it. The Huke for Hicksy thing, I think Hicksy's an okay player, right? But at the end of the day, you need on a team some takeover power if you want to win. If you want to just be, a consistent top 8 force, sure, but if you want the upside on a particular weekend where your best players do fry, prioritizing talent, I think, does tend to be rather important. So that's kind of what we saw here with Huke, I guess, when they decided that, okay, Huke wasn't the best at Modern Warfare 3 last year, and sure, understandably wasn't. I think he tried very hard. I think he was arguably their, best player in some respects last year, Surge for a time, but it wasn't a game that massively suited him. This year's game, I think, was always going to be better for Huke. A movement-based COD, Huke was always going to be pretty good at this game. Turns out he's actually very good at this game. Whether that translates to LAN, that is still the big question that many OpTic fans will have, and probably that will be the deciding factor in some respects at Madrid. Because if Huke delivers on LAN at what he's done online, OpTic can absolutely win this tournament. If he doesn't, then they probably won't, unless Kenny turns up big time, which is also possible as well. We are going to LAN. It's very exciting stuff, and I wouldn't say we've got a 2-horse race, but there are certainly 2 teams that are putting themselves in the position of being the favourites as it presently stands. Dashy was happy with the win. See you guys in Madrid. I think the Gentlemates guys actually flew out there last night, so I guess because they weren't playing Sunday, they had this plan, so they're going to be getting out there relatively early. Plenty of time for them to maybe get some practice against whoever going into the tournament. As Shotzzy says, at Madrid soon, so I imagine the teams are going to fly out tomorrow probably, or maybe today even is possible, I guess, because if they're flying overnight, they'll want to really be there Tuesday so they can, maybe get the jet lag out of the system a little bit and then play scrims on the Wednesday. So I'm flying out tomorrow, but massively looking forward to it, of course. And as Drazah says, also FaZe had a great result. GG's Cloud9 1-3-2, got 2 hectic in the map 4. MC is Diffy, LAN up next. And certainly Cellium's performance has been turning some heads recently. This I thought were just in numbers against Cloud9, but it's funny, right? Because as I said the other day, you look at his numbers from the start of the season, he was basically a 1-0 flat. Every series now, his KD goes up and up, and his KD isn't far off being the #1 in the league now, again, which shouldn't be a surprise. But, 1.43, leads in kills, leads in KD, 1.48 in the respawns, 1.4 KD in the last 6 straight series. He has a 1.1 plus in the last 6. That is pretty absurd. I don't know what the record is on that. It might already be Cellium's record for number of series in a row in the CDL with a 1.4 or better, even like a 1.3 or better. There can't be that many players that have ever had 2 series in a row with a 1.3 or better, 1.4 or better. Cell's done it in the last 4 in a row. Will that continue with the major? That, I suppose, will remain to be seen. This is the KD ladder as it presently stands, and Shotzzy is still number 1. He has a 1.20 so far this season, and Huke is now second with a 1.18. So what I'm saying, right? Like, Surge got rid of Huke, he comes into OpTic for Pred, and this SMG duo has been pretty much frying everyone, and they have the top 2 KDs in the entire game as a duo. That is pretty scary. Dashy isn't far behind either. Simp is on the leaderboard as well, but Cellium has rapidly risen up these ranks now to a 1.15. Gwinn is still here, and actually Scrappy is here as well, which is, you know, Scrap hasn't felt as impressive this year, but still these numbers on an AR are pretty impressive, because you see most of the players here, I mean, of the 9 that they have, or of the 8 that they have, only 3 of them are ARs. So, you know, obviously Huke and Gwinn and CleanX and Simp all SMGs, and then some familiar suspects in Cell, Dashy and Scrappy on the rest of this list. So let's talk about really how we got then to the bracket we are about to discuss, because as Octane says, OpTic looking particularly strong in the hardpoint, looks like a FaZe versus OpTic grand finals is plausible, and to be fair, they do start on opposite sides of the bracket despite FaZe's early difficulties, and that of course left OpTic with the number 1 seed going into the major. Was not guaranteed at all. They had to clutch up as they did against Toronto, win it in the game 4, Huke with a massive takeover, and therefore this is the present standings that we have. Now this doesn't include the points accrued from the minor, so OpTic came top 4, so they got 10 points, so they'd be on 70. Ravens came second, so they're on 70 as well. FaZe are also on 70 because they won it and got, you know, 40 points plus 30. So I think that's pretty much where we are. There's 3 teams top of the season standings, but the season standings don't really matter. What really matters is the Major 1 standings from the qualifiers, because that was only what was determining the seeding for the tournament. So if you'd have gone into the season and told me this would be the list of teams, I'd be like, what are you cooking? Because, you know, Boston and Ravens are in a position that you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be. I thought Toronto would be good, and they had a relatively easy schedule, so I'm not massively surprised that they're up there. FaZe being 4-3 would be a surprise for sure, certainly the way they started. Thieves being 5-2 is like understandable. I mean, lots of these results are understandable, but it's just like the fact that Boston and Ravens are up here in the mix is very impressive. It's obviously Ravens started very well and lately have been a bit more shaky. Boston started okay, but have just got better and better with time. So that was the seeding. Unfortunately for Boston, they hold the head-to-head against Ravens, right, because they beat them. So even though their map win-loss isn't as good as Ravens or Thieves, the way that the tiebreakers now work mean that because Boston had beaten both of those teams, they win the tiebreak against both of them, despite the fact that their map win-loss isn't as good, which is probably the right way to do it. But unfortunately for Boston, that gives them the worst possible first round matchup of the major. So that is kind of unfortunate. Surge got 7th, and then it goes down to the depths of hell, really, with everyone at 2 and 5. Miami get away with it based on the map counts here. Cloud9 in no man's land, and then, of course, the Vegas Falcons at the bottom. Cloud9, I mean, they won 10 series in 7 maps. It's not great, and 2 of them they won against FaZe in their final series. So they didn't win that many more maps than Falcons did. So based on these results, and therefore these seedings, this is what the bracket is going to be looking like here for the major tournament in Madrid. So, I mean, this is where we begin. We can start on the winner's side to see how this is all going to play out. Again, it is a classic first round game. OpTic versus Heretics. You couldn't write this stuff for the first match of the season, but it is always what we tend to find. So we know that Miami Heretics, they used to be the Florida Mutineers. OpTic would always match up with those guys. It was a bit of a bogey team for them in some respects as well. But yeah, Heretics are now the new version of that. No Vickle anymore, no Pred anymore either. So that Pred Vickle drama has kind of got away. But still, Heretics have been a team that have occasionally caused problems for OpTic over the years. Certainly that organization based out of Florida has. But over the last, you know, half a season or so, at the end of last year, OpTic had no issues at all dispatching of Heretics basically every single time. Now, I don't expect that to change. Heretics are always a team that, you know, they have an upset win in them. They just aren't able to deliver that level particularly often. And even if it goes to 5, OpTic are going to be favoured in that situation. But then again, lucky for Heretics on some level, it is kind of a home event. It's not an event that they are hosting. It's actually being hosted officially by KOI, which is part of the Toronto branding, but they're not saying it's hosted by Toronto. They're saying it's hosted by KOI, who are under the overactive media heading that Toronto are a part of. But they will maybe benefit Heretics. They're not running it, but it's a Spanish event with Spanish fans. So that may be some advantage, but I'm sure there's going to be OpTic fans there as well. Ravens then play Thieves. This is particularly interesting. Thieves, of course, will be the favourites for the series, but Ravens online, who knows? We know that Thieves as well, they have been struggling in some of the respawn modes. The Search and Destroy also hasn't been great either, apart from Scrappy, really. That's where Ravens will feel like they've got their chance. And it's TJ, right? TJ has been absolutely cooking. Slasher tends to get better on LAN as well. So, you know, Ravens are a team that going into the season, I expected them to be better on LAN than online. And if they are, then they've got a chance here against Thieves. I wouldn't say that's impossible to write off just yet, but based on, you know, what the bookmakers will say, OpTic versus Thieves is the expected winners round 2 game, which is a banger second round matchup, right, to get to top 3 if you win that one. But as I said, as it's turned out, even with FaZe playing quite poorly in the first stint in December, and honestly they were on blow it up watch for some time, they found themselves on probably the nice side of the bracket, really. Boston are not going to go down easy. I just have my concerns about Boston on LAN to some extent. I just think that they've played excellently online. When they get to LAN, I'm not sure they'll be able to keep up that level to quite the same extent. And obviously, it's funny because Boston 3-2'd so many teams very impressively, right? They beat Thieves, they beat OpTic, they beat Ravens. The only team they got 3-0'd by, FaZe, they haven't to play round 1. So yeah, unlucky for them, I suppose. And then Ultra Surge. Toronto definitely the favourites here, but, you know, Surge could do a number, who knows. But yeah, theoretically, it's going to be OpTic, Thieves, Ultra, FaZe in the second rounds. And it's not like Toronto can't beat FaZe. They did it online. But I think if FaZe had to, like, choose their bracket, they would probably prefer to play Ultra second rounds than to play OpTic or Thieves second rounds. So, you know, that's how it looks on paper. The losers bracket is as follows. So, Gentlemates play the loser of OpTic Heretics. That's a likely first round game. The Ravens Thieves loser plays the Falcons because Falcons were the worst seed, so they play the best theoretical losing seed. So Ravens and Thieves are 4th and 5th. So Falcons have to play them rather than playing the 8th team, which is theoretically who Gentlemates will probably play because they came 9th in the seedings. That's how it usually works anyway. So Rocker then played Toronto, Vancouver. So again, it could be another Surge Rocker one basically in the losers bracket. And then Cloud9, they are likely to play Boston or FaZe. Now this is a particularly interesting, I would say, of the Friday games. That's probably the pick of the bunch, really. Cloud9 versus what will likely be Cloud9 Boston. Loser goes home top 12, but it could also be Cloud9 FaZe, not impossible. But, you know, obviously Cloud9, if they were to lose that series, whoever they play, and it is a difficult one, whoever they play, but, you know, they've earned it being the 11th seed. They've got a difficult first round game. They lose that, whoever loses that, absolutely blow it up watch is maybe it's beyond blow it up watch at that point. So very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. What's your pick of the first round games? And we'll discuss over the coming days who are the likely tournament winners. Is there a potential outside chance run in here as well? LAN is always a little bit different to when we have online play. But OpTic secured the #1 seed pretty impressively, and FaZe looked almost unbeatable over the last couple of weeks, and they won the minor, of course. So those are clearly the two favourites. I'd say that FaZe on paper probably are the favourites. They've not looked particularly close to losing, apart from yesterday against Cloud9, and they won the minor, and they maybe have the better side of the bracket, but they're not the #1 seed, they're the 6th seed. So in terms of seeding, and in terms of when, let's say, OpTic were to play FaZe, when it comes to vetoes, OpTic get the preferential treatment there. And it's a small advantage, but it may be an advantage that carries some decisive consequences. So very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.